Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Friday, August 13th. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. You've been hearing about it for weeks. More people need to get vaccinated to meet our COVID-19 goals. And right now, a push is underway to reach people on a personal level. Looking at the county's vaccine dashboard, 83% of eligible residents have received at least one shot. So what can be done to get that number up? KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman is live in City Heights to tell us about new door-to-door outreach. Matt?
Maya, with the more dangerous Delta variant spreading in communities and increasing hospitalizations, the focus on outreach to communities with lower vaccination rates has never been higher. And here behind me in City Heights, teams have been going out door to door, trying to meet people one-on-one, talk to them about their vaccination status. I want to show you some video from earlier today. These teams got out here starting just a few hours ago. This is a county-wide effort that's being spearheaded by the Employee Rights Center and still happening right now. About 20 people going door to door, asking people if they're vaccinated, and if not, trying to have a conversation with them about why and maybe try to dispel some disinformation. Some say they don't want to get vaccinated because some who have the shots are catching coronavirus. Now, that is true, but that's a very small number, and those people generally are not being hospitalized or dying, so the vaccines are literally working. These teams do not want to see any unvaccinated residents catching the virus and having bad outcomes.
Unfortunately, from people that we work with to people around us right here, people are dying. People are getting long-term consequences from COVID. So we got to do it because the health and the long-term health of our community is going to be based on what we do here.
Now, this outreach has been going on for a few months with no plans to slow down, and it's made possible due to a state grant and community members stepping up to volunteer their time. Now, I want to show you this outreach event is leading up to a free vaccination event here in City Heights. It's going to be at the Employee Rights Center at their headquarters in their parking lot in just a couple of weeks on August 28th from 2 to 5 p.m. There'll also be food packages and diapers being distributed at that event. Now, you might be wondering, is this outreach working? Organizers say they think it is. At the last event that they had, vaccination event, they said about 30% of the people, about a third of the people showed up with their flyers, so they think that their word is getting out. Maya, we'll send it back to you.
And Matt, before you go, also on the vaccination front, some big news from the CDC. Boosters are now being recommended for some individuals now.
Yeah, we knew this was coming. We knew this was going to be expected. You know, a lot of experts had said that people who are immunocompromised, who have weakened immune systems, were likely going to be getting that recommendation to get another booster shot. Now, the CDC has given the okay for that to happen. And like we said, this is something that we know has been coming all along. And in fact, for the masses, the general population, we may not need to get a booster. The vaccines are working very, very well, even against the Delta variant. But for some, and maybe even some of the older populations, we might see in the coming weeks and days some more recommendations for, like seniors to get vaccinated, or maybe some more people with underlying health conditions.
Thanks for that report, Matt. And whether you're considering a booster or still looking for your first COVID-19 shot, KPBS has you covered. Go to our homepage at kpbs.org and you'll find a link to our Tracking COVID-19 section there. We have a list of local vaccination sites and information on where to get a COVID test. And of course, all of our recent reporting on the pandemic, it's all at kpbs.org. Drama at a school board meeting in Vista. It was shut down several times when protesters refused to wear masks inside. But KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne tells us some parents are starting to form a pro-mask group.
Tensions were high at a school board meeting in Vista last night.
If they do not wear their mask, we cannot continue the business of the board at this point in time.
Vista School Board President Cipriano Vargas shut down the meeting several times because people refused to wear their masks.
At this point in time, I'm going to reconvene the meeting. If members of the public are still not going to be wearing their masks, we will have to reconvene at another location.
The public was moved to a different room when it was time for the public comment. Sharon McKeeman, the leader of the group Let Them Breathe, was there. She was not wearing a mask because she has a medical exemption.
When it came to my time to speak, they let me come into the building, but then when I got to the chambers, they actually slammed the door in my face.
McKeeman was unable to give her comment. Let Them Breathe's legal advisor sent an email to the Vista School Board stating there is no mask mandate in place and saying the choice to remove members of the public from a public meeting violates the Brown Act.
Last night was supposed to be a school board meeting. So we were supposed to be able to listen and watch what the school board's business was, and we were supposed to each have that allotted time on the microphone where nobody interrupts it, where there's no arguing, and that didn't happen.
While Let Them Breathe has been campaigning against mask mandates, other parents are starting to organize a counter group supporting mask rules. Kristen Beer is starting one called Parents for PUSD for Poway Unified School District.
Our goal is to let all of the other parents in the San Diego school system know that if they do not want our school districts to apply for waivers to the mask mandate, they're not alone. There are lots of us. There are lots of parents who are okay sending our kids masked.
Beer says mask choice will create more chaos for the school and teachers.
If they're enforcing the same rule for everyone, children understand that. That's the rule. We all follow the same rule. That's what elementary school is kind of all about. That's kind of almost the most important thing you can teach an elementary school child is to follow rules that they don't like because it's the right thing to do.
She said the group's goal is to balance out the noise that has been heard from opposing groups.
All we've seen so far are this vocal minority who seem to have the time and the money for protests and lawsuits and organized disruptions of school board meetings.
Parents for PUSD will hold a rally outside the Poway Unified School District's office tomorrow at 10 a.m. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
The Bishop of San Diego is encouraging all priests to get vaccinated. KPBS reporter Alexandra Rangel has more on why he's also asking priests not to seek any religious exemptions.
The person you should be seeking advice from on should you be vaccinated or not is your doctor.
The San Diego Diocese says using religious beliefs as a reason to refuse the vaccine isn't valid. In fact, San Diego Bishop Robert McElroy has asked priests to caringly decline any requests from members seeking a religious exemption. Kevin Eckery with the Diocese of San Diego says the Catholic Church fully supports vaccination.
There's nothing in Catholic faith or doctrine that says that there's a religious exemption for getting a vaccine. In fact, it's really the opposite. I mean, the Pope, Bishop McElroy, and others have said there's a moral responsibility here.
Many of the local priests have set the example by getting vaccinated. With priests being so close to the public, Eckery says it's important that they have the protection the vaccine provides.
We've had vaccination programs working with Alvarado Hospital at our own headquarters. So inviting all the priests and deacons to receive vaccination.
Eckery says they've had some requests from people seeking exemptions, but they haven't seen much pushback. However, that might change now that vaccine mandates are being implemented across the state.
We're going to continue to be intensely supportive of vaccination efforts. And that's just all there is to it.
Alexandra Rangel, KPBS News.
A week after the San Diego County Sheriff's Department released an edited video of a deputy supposedly overdosing on fentanyl, they released the unedited body cam video. John Carroll says the longer videos still leave unanswered questions.
The video released last week was dramatic. After packaging up some fentanyl taken from a suspect's vehicle, Deputy David Five Eyes suddenly stiffens and falls back. Almost immediately, his training officer, Deputy Scott Crane, administers naloxone given to people who have OD'd on opioids.
Hey, dude. Wake up. Hey, buddy.
Military 91 pound 6.
Yes, code cover.
The blowback came within hours. Medical professionals across the country saying what the video showed was not an example of overdosing on fentanyl, lashing out at the sheriff's department for releasing a video many said misportrayed a situation that plays out with deadly consequences across this country every day.
I think it's helpful to release the full version so that people can see as much as you can see from a body cam.
Dr. Carla Marienfeld is the medical director of UC San Diego's Addiction Recovery and Treatment Program. She has not seen the unedited version of the video yet. With what she has seen, she says she doesn't feel comfortable saying what happened to Deputy Five Eye was an overdose. Marienfeld says she's more concerned about the unintended message the video could send.
I think the most important message is that people shouldn't be afraid of incidental exposure to fentanyl in a limited way like this, to where they would not act to help someone who might be overdosing.
One thing that is new from the unedited version comes when Deputy Five Eye is answering questions from a paramedic.
Any medical history I need to know about?
Probably my 6th or 7th time I fall on my head.
That leads to an obvious question as to whether Deputy Five Eye has a history of fainting, and if that's what happened here. Dr. Marienfeld says, hard to tell.
I think that you want to take into consideration the fact that the patient may have had previous head injuries and whether or not some of what he was presenting with currently was related to him hitting his head in any way.
Then there's the question of a toxicology test. The sheriff's department now says one was not done at the hospital. Dr. Marienfeld says that's not unusual.
In the emergency room, you're trying to be as efficient as possible in helping somebody. In that situation where the story was consistent with a fentanyl exposure, it wouldn't necessarily make sense to check to see if there was fentanyl in his system, particularly if the story you heard as the physician was that the patient responded to naloxone.
We reached out to the sheriff's department for clarification, but in an email they said they weren't doing any interviews today, leaving this story kind of how it started, with way more questions than answers. John Carroll, KPBS News.
San Diego County voters will soon be receiving mail ballots for the September 14th recall election. They'll be voting on whether to boot Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom from office. And this comes as the Delta variant continues to threaten the state's pandemic recovery. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen explains how the vote will work and what's at stake for the Golden State.
Simply put, recall elections in California are weird, unlike any other regular election. Voters will have two questions on their ballots. The first is a yes or no. Should Governor Newsom be kicked out of office? The second question is who should replace him if a majority supports the recall. So let's say a majority votes no on the recall, meaning they want Newsom to stay. Then the second question doesn't matter. But if a majority votes yes on the recall, then whoever gets the most votes in the second question becomes governor. So there is a scenario where Newsom could get, say, 5 million votes to stay governor, but 5,000,001 voters want him out. Newsom leaves office, and the candidate with the most votes takes over, even if that person got fewer votes than Newsom. Like I said, recalls are weird.
One of the most important things going into the recall is recognizing that it's off cycle. And when it's off cycle, meaning non-presidential, there's going to be low voter turnout.
Sonia Diaz is the founding director of the UCLA Latino Policy and Politics Initiative. She says the weirdness of the recall election, it's not just an odd year, it's also in mid-September, will likely discourage less frequent voters from casting ballots.
Now, that may be normal for some who have been voting in California for years and years. But as it relates to our youthful, diverse voters, that's new and novel. And there's going to need to be a concerted effort to educate voters about how to vote, how to participate, how to make sense of this ballot.
Polls have consistently shown that more California voters oppose the recall than support it. But among voters who are likely to cast ballots, the split is almost even. That's because of the enthusiasm gap. Diaz says Republicans are thrilled about the chance to take control of the country's most populous state and a Democratic stronghold.
And so ultimately, that can be really exciting for that segment of voters. But that is not the universe of California voters. And so what's really important to understand here is turnout. Turnout is going to dictate the outcome of September 14th.
Another strange thing about this election is how the candidates are campaigning. By the way, there are 46 of them, plus Newsom. The governor has avoided direct engagement with the leading replacement candidates, all of whom are Republicans. And UCSD political science professor Thad Kauser says those Republican candidates aren't bothering to appeal to the political center like they would in a general election.
All the Republican candidates have correctly diagnosed that this is a race they can win with 20% of the vote, right? Because the replacement ballot, you don't have to get a majority, you just have to get a plurality. You just have to stand out among Republicans. And the way to do that is by continuing to embrace Donald Trump, which they all have, by attacking things such as critical race theory and all these sort of new culture war bogeymen.
If the recall is successful and a Republican takes over the governorship, the big question is how that would impact California politics. Democrats would still hold a veto-proof majority in the legislature, and that Republican governor would still face a tough re-election campaign just 1 year later. Kauser calls this scenario a one-year political earthquake.
It'll be a proof of concept that Republicans can win, and that Donald Trump messaging and rallying the base, right, can win in the bluest of blue states.
Also, the governor does have immense control over public health policies, things like vaccine and mask mandates, which the leading Republican candidates oppose. Newsom and his allies have raised more than twice as much as all of his opponents combined, according to the LA Times. But to save his political career, he'll have to translate that money into Democratic enthusiasm. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
We're seeing a high-profile show of support for Governor Newsom from the White House. President Joe Biden weighed in on Twitter, urging a vote to keep Newsom in office. It's not yet known if or when the president might do more on Newsom's behalf. Same goes for Vice President Kamala Harris, who, like Newsom, has deep roots in the Bay Area. It's a busy time for Newsom's opponents. John Cox held an event in San Diego today, and Larry Elder is also making moves. Dustin Dorsey checked in on one of his campaign stops.
Republican candidate for governor of California, Larry Elder, was greeted by cheers from a packed crowd at Calvary Church in San Jose Thursday afternoon. Just about 1 month until the recall election, Elder took aim at Gavin Newsom as he looked to rally support.
This man that I'm going to defeat on September the 14th, he has shut down this state in the most severe way than any of the other 49 governors have.
The crowd came from across the state to the South Bay to hear their favorite candidate speak on the ways he would improve California, including cost of living, forest management, homelessness, and crime. The people who we spoke with have made up their minds. They say Larry Elder is the best person to fix these problems.
He's a business guy. He's well known. You know, he's well spoken. And a lot of his ideas will fit well with the state.
We have an opportunity to get rid of a tyrant who just yesterday threw everybody connected to education under the vax bus.
Larry Elder is strongly against vaccine or mask mandates for the state. In the same church that defied COVID-19 guidelines last year, Elder made a promise to the mostly maskless crowd.
When I get elected, assuming that there still are face mask mandates and vaccine mandates, they will be repealed right away. And then I'm going to break for breakfast.
Governor Gavin Newsom's campaign sent out an email response to Elder's views on COVID-19. The email said Elder would be a disaster for California, and it's no wonder Donald Trump and Larry Elder get along so well.
That was Dustin Dorsey reporting. Governor Newsom campaigned in San Francisco today as part of a statewide tour. No details yet on any events in San Diego. The week started with the UN's warning that climate change is accelerating, and it's ending with more evidence to back that up. July 2021 was the hottest month ever recorded around the world, according to the Federal Weather Agency, NOAA. Heat waves were observed in the western U.S., Eastern Europe, and Asia. As for weather locally, some parts of San Diego could see a summer thunderstorm in this weekend. Melissa Constancer has the forecast.
As we head into the weekend, we're talking the same kind of pattern here. Basically,
dry, summertime warmth, but there actually could be a few shower chances returning to our area before the end of it and heading into next week. And those rain chances all coming from the monsoonal moisture. So things to look forward to, but maybe not get our hopes up too high, because a little bit of rain can be welcomed every now and then. Notice across the area, though, 70 the low for San Diego tonight, and we're talking 65 in Oceanside as you head towards places like Mount Laguna in the mid-60s too. So pretty quiet night, not much for marine layer activity. You can see there's some clouds off towards the east and limited marine layer here as you look towards the coast. So basically talking about a lot of sunshine out there for Saturday. The exception, we start to see a lot more moisture building in through southern Arizona, pushing closer and closer into southern California. So we will be talking about that chance for rain starting to inch its way back in, and even a few showers possible here, maybe a rumble of thunder passing through Mount Laguna late. 77 for the high heading into tomorrow there, but we're at 78 in San Diego and heading to Escondido, mid-80s for the high. Sunday, Monday, I should say. Basically, the story is hot and dry, but you can tell there is still that monsoonal moisture out there, so we'll still be hanging somewhat close at times, I think, to our region, which is why we could still maybe see a shower. Saturday's forecast here, not showing too much of the way of activity, but then by Saturday afternoon and into early Sunday morning, notice there's a bit of green here trying to pop up here on Futurecast. That shows some of those showers just kind of skirting their way on through. Beyond that, things are, again, largely quiet, but it is that impact of the monsoonal moisture stretching a little farther to the west, a little closer to us over the next few days. For the coast, we're talking lower 80s, not really much changing here as we add the humidity in. And then Monday, maybe a few spotty showers for our inland locations. Tuesday and Wednesday looking quieter, mid-80s for those highs. Chance of showers, thunderstorms kind of around for Saturday through Monday, maybe even into Tuesday and Wednesday for our mountain locations, desert locations. There's that stray thunderstorm possible as we head through the week. For KPBS News, I'm AccuWeather meteorologist Melissa Constanzer.
TikTok has launched some new measures aimed at protecting teen users. The video sharing app will no longer send push notifications to 13 to 15-year-olds after 9 p.m. and 16 to 17-year-olds will not receive them after 10 at night. Those under 18 will also have direct messaging disabled by default and must actively change that setting to receive DMs. TikTok requires users to be at least 13 years old. App developers say they use methods like keywords and reports from other users to flag underage accounts. It seems we're paying more for a lot of things right now, and we might have to add our mail to that list. The U.S. Postal Service is considering price hikes for the holiday season. It would be temporary to make up for a rise in handling and delivery costs. Priority mail and first-class packages are among the services that would see a jump. Final approval is still pending. If it happens, the extra costs would be in place from October 3rd through December 26th. And higher prices have been one of the growing pains of our economic recovery from the pandemic. SDSU's Miro Kopik dives into what's going on with inflation and how long it might last in the Friday Business Report.
The national inflation rate was announced earlier this week, along with that of San Diego. We're seeing in the month of July a 6% annualized inflation rate here in San Diego, a little lower nationally, about 5.4%. So we're actually about 11% higher than the national average. For example, nationally, we've seen energy prices go up 42% nationally on gas costs. San Diego is 36%. Whereas, one of the barometers that we've seen in the past, because, with the pandemic, people stayed home, they didn't drive. So used car sales over the last couple of months are a big driver of inflation. Used car prices at a national level finally leveled off, which is a great sign. Whereas in San Diego, they were up 40%, but they're going to moderate over time. So in the next quarter, what we're seeing is that, the supply chain issues that we've been seeing are finally going to start to level off as more people come into the workplace. We're going to see still elevated inflation over the next month or two, especially that we saw the wholesale price index, which measures what businesses are paying for goods and services, was up almost 7% versus a year ago. And so we're going to have to continue to watch that in particular, because businesses are going to pass through some of those cost increases to consumers over the next couple of months.
I'm William Brangham. On the next News Hour, Taliban takeover. As key cities fall, we talk with Afghanistan's ambassador. Coming up at 7, right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Anderson hits it in the air right. Back at the wall, and the White Sox win
it was a field of dreams, all right. Ninth inning drama, perfect for a movie sequel, but it was real life as the White Sox and Yankees slugged it out, going back and forth with the lead until the Sox won it with a dramatic walk-off home run, 9-8 in the final. The game played in the iconic cornfield in Iowa.
I mean, it could be huge. It just depends on what they do with it. You know, man, our first time here, you know, in the Field of Dreams, and you know, to be able to make a memory like this is definitely, you know, definitely leaving a mark. You know, the fans came to see the show, and you know, we gave them a show tonight. Tonight was a, you know, exciting night, and it was fun to definitely play in this atmosphere.
Major League Baseball says it plans to hold more games at the Field of Dreams site. And as for the Padres, they hope to get back on the winning track tonight after losing yesterday's game in Arizona. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. I hope you have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.